A Prime Minister's private insult just destroyed his entire government in 10 days. The words Keir Starmer said behind closed doors weren't meant for anyone to hear. But when they leaked, they didn't just spark controversy. They triggered the fastest political meltdown in modern British history. Here's what actually happened. Behind the scenes at Windsor Castle, King Charles held a quiet meeting with Nigel Farage and senior Reform UK figures. No cameras, no ceremony, just private conversations about Britain's direction and growing concerns about Labour's leadership. When news of that meeting reached the press, Westminster exploded. For Starmer, already battling accusations of weak leadership, the image of the monarchy consulting with his biggest rival felt like a public humiliation. Palace insiders hinted the king had expressed concerns about the government's path, and for a prime minister trying to prove his authority, that was intolerable. If you want to see how one sentence can end a career and rewrite British politics overnight, subscribe now, because what comes next is political warfare at its rawest. Inside number 10, Starmer's frustration boiled over. He called an emergency cabinet meeting. The room was tense the moment ministers walked in. Starmer was pacing, visibly angry. And then, while venting about the palace meeting, he said something no modern British prime minister had ever dared say out loud. The monarchy is nothing but elderly men in elaborate costumes pretending to matter. The room went silent. Ministers froze. Some looked horrified. Others sat in disbelief, because everyone in that room knew they'd just witnessed a career-ending mistake. Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson later told colleagues she'd never seen a leader so reckless with the institutions that hold Britain together. Those words, like the insult itself, eventually leaked too. By nightfall, journalists were reporting it. By morning, it dominated every front page. Starmer insults the Crown. PM mocks King in private tirade. Social media exploded. Within hours, condemnation trended nationwide. Even long-time Labour voters struggled to defend him. A retired teacher from Liverpool posted a video that captured the national mood. Speaking into her phone, voice shaking, she said, "I've voted Labour all my life. My parents voted Labour, but insulting our king? That's not leadership. That's destruction. I can't support this anymore." The video went viral. 3 million views in 24 hours. The comments became a gathering place for disillusioned voters sharing stories of betrayal. But social media wasn't the only battlefield. Polling confirmed the damage. A YouGov survey 48 hours after the leak showed nearly 3/4 of Britons believed Starmer had gone too far. Worse, over half of Labour's own voters now doubted his ability to lead. In Labour heartlands, the backlash was catastrophic. Union leaders fielded angry calls. Local offices were flooded with complaints. Lifelong activists turned in their membership cards. What should have been manageable spin became an existential crisis. And through it all, King Charles said absolutely nothing. That silence became the most devastating weapon imaginable. While Starmer scrambled with explanations and apologies, while his press team issued frantic statements, the king remained calm, dignified, untouchable. He attended charity events, met community leaders, carried out his duties with the same steady composure he'd shown for decades. One BBC analyst captured it perfectly. One man looks like a statesman, the other looks like a leader unravelling in real time. The king's silence proved something fundamental about power. Sometimes saying nothing speaks louder than any speech. Sometimes dignity is the strongest response. But while Starmer's career crumbled, someone else was rising. Nigel Farage had been waiting for a moment like this his entire political life. Standing outside Reform UK headquarters, flanked by Union Jacks, he delivered a speech that electrified Britain. "When others insult our king, we honour him," Farage declared, voice rising. "When others mock our history, we defend it. When others tear down what makes us British, we stand proud and say, not on our watch." He paused. The crowd was silent, hanging on every word. This isn't about politics anymore. This is about who we are as a nation. This is about values we refuse to surrender. And I promise you this, Reform UK will never apologise for loving our country. The crowd erupted. The footage went viral instantly. Millions of views within hours. Shared by people who'd never considered voting reform before. The party's membership quadrupled in a week. Donations poured in from every corner of Britain. Local offices opened in towns that had never seen a reform presence. The polling told an extraordinary story. Reform UK, once dismissed as a fringe protest party, was now surging. In some polls, they'd overtaken Labour entirely. Farage wasn't just an irritant anymore. He was a genuine threat to become leader of the opposition. Inside Labour headquarters, panic turned to civil war. MPs who'd been loyal to Starmer formed secret WhatsApp groups, debating whether they could survive under a leader who'd insulted the monarchy. Senior figures began positioning for a leadership contest. Rachel Reeves went conspicuously silent. Colleagues said she was taking calls, listening to concerns from MPs across the party. Political insiders recognised it immediately. She was preparing a leadership bid. Angela Rayner began openly rallying MPs, telling anyone who'd listen that Labour needs steady hands to guide us out of this chaos. It was the language of a coup. Even Diane Abbott emerged with a brutal assessment. Starmer hasn't just dragged us into scandal. He's led us to the brink of annihilation. Labour must decide now whether it wants to survive. The criticism stung because it was true. Internal polling showed Labour collapsing across every demographic. Young voters abandoned the party over needless provocation. Older voters left over the insult to tradition. Working-class communities felt betrayed. Then the resignations began. Rachel Reeves and Wes Streeting announced their departures within hours of each other, citing irreconcilable differences in leadership direction. Angela Rayner followed the next morning. Within 48 hours, 7 cabinet ministers had quit. Top donors pulled funding. The party's communications operation went dark. Outside Westminster, the scenes were chaotic. Thousands of protesters gathered, waving Union Jacks, chanting, "Respect the Crown, remove Starmer now." Television crews captured it all in real time. Britain was watching its government collapse on live TV. And then, late one evening, Buckingham Palace broke its silence. The statement was released without fanfare. No press conference, no royal appearance, just a simple document posted on the palace website. It contained exactly 31 words. His Majesty remains steadfast in his commitment to serve all citizens of the United Kingdom, without prejudice and with enduring respect for our nation's institutions. The King never mentioned Starmer by name. He didn't need to. Every person in Britain knew exactly what those 31 words meant. It was a royal rebuke wrapped in diplomatic language, a masterclass in constitutional power. One constitutional expert observed, "Charles has just checkmated Starmer without moving a piece. He's reaffirmed his role, defended his office, and exposed the insult as the constitutional violation it was. All in 31 words. By sunrise, the statement dominated every headline. By midday, it was the only story that mattered. Crowds gathered outside Buckingham Palace, waving flags, singing God Save the King. The footage played on loop across news channels. Britain was rallying around its monarchy in a way not seen in decades. Inside number 10, Keir Starmer sat alone, staring at the palace statement on his screen. The man who believed he could reshape Britain's relationship with its monarchy was now watching his career end because of it. The irony was devastating. A prime minister who prided himself on discipline had lost everything because of one unguarded moment. One insult that revealed what many now believed he'd hidden all along: contempt for the institutions that hold Britain together. The following morning, BBC cameras captured senior ministers entering number 10 for what everyone knew was an ultimatum meeting. Their faces were grim. The nation watched live, waiting for the inevitable. By noon, Labour's National Executive Committee convened for an emergency session. By mid-afternoon, advisers were begging Starmer to resign gracefully, to spare the party further damage, to leave with whatever dignity remained. But Starmer refused. "I won't be forced out by a crown," he told his inner circle, voice defiant but hollow. "I was elected by party members, not by royal decree." It was a final echo of the arrogance that doomed him, because he still didn't understand the fundamental truth. Britain's monarchy isn't just about tradition, it's woven into the nation's identity. It represents continuity, stability, unity that transcends party politics. A prime minister can challenge policy, they can fight elections, they can push reform, but insulting the crown, that crosses a line the British people will not tolerate. In just 10 days, Britain's political landscape was completely redrawn. Labour, once dominant, now stood fractured and leaderless. Internal polling showed them trailing not just the Conservatives, but Reform UK as well. Decades of credibility destroyed by one man's inability to control his temper. The Conservative Party, divided and directionless just weeks earlier, suddenly found itself united. Poll numbers surged, donations increased, demoralised members found new energy. But the real story was Reform UK. Nigel Farage, the man establishment politicians spent years trying to marginalise, was now leading a party polling at 28% nationally. In some constituencies, Reform was the outright favourite. The impossible was happening. Farage was on the verge of becoming not just an MP, but potentially leader of His Majesty's most loyal opposition. One insult, 10 days. An entire government brought to its knees. This is what happens when a leader forgets that in Britain, some institutions are beyond politics. Some traditions aren't relics to be mocked, they're foundations that hold a nation together. And respect isn't optional, it's the bedrock of leadership itself. King Charles proved something profound through his silence. That true power doesn't need to shout, it doesn't need to defend itself. It simply exists, calm and unshakable, while those who challenge it destroy themselves. So here's my question. Do you think Starmer should resign immediately or try to fight on? Could Labour ever recover from this, or is the party finished as a major force? And what does it say about Britain that one insult caused this much damage? Drop your answer in the comments. I want to know what you think. And if you want to stay ahead of the biggest political stories as they break, subscribe right now. Because in British politics today, the impossible is happening every single day. And trust me, this story is far from over.